be remiss if I didn't thank our sponsors tonight, Avery Dennison, Vicinity Brew, Veryl Dana, and EconoCorp. These guys have been great sponsors. Obviously, these are the ones to my right. And then we have some more over there, OY, Markham Homage, and Myers Brothers. These guys have been great sponsors all year long. This is our 6th and final stop. Thank you guys for supporting us. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do this, so thank you. And lastly, everyone here tonight that paid to join us, we raised over $2,000 for... I believe the downtown Framingham, is it Renaissance? Downtown Framingham Renaissance. And yeah. Woo! So thank you guys for contributing. What they do basically is facilitate the development of downtown Framingham. Their primary focus is to recruit both public and private partnerships and investment in order to generate jobs and income here in Framingham and to increase community connections. So Jack's Abbey, obviously a big part of what's happening here in Framingham, and proud to support them. Thank you guys. So with that, let's jump right in. I'll take a seat. Try not to spill my beer. Guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Men of few words. So what's new here at Jack's Abbey? I walked around briefly with you earlier. A lot of space to grow here. You guys are expanding with a new project. Let's catch up a little bit and just tell me how you think you'll finish out the year here, both for Jack's Abbey, and let's talk about the new Springdale project.
Yeah, so Jack's Abbey, we're having a good year. We changed a lot of what we do over the last year, from moving into new space to kind of changing up a lot of our brands, and House Lager has kind of become one of our new flagships alongside Hoponius Union. So we expect to finish up the year somewhere in the 36,000 barrel range.
Wow.
So probably just shy of double where we ended up last year.
You guys have come a long way.
Yeah.
It feels like just the other day I was filling up a growler at your old spot, and it's certainly pretty remarkable to see kind of what you guys have grown into. What's been sort of the biggest challenge along the way as you guys have grown up into the space that you're here today?
I mean, everything about the business has changed. Probably the biggest thing right now is just staffing. We quadrupled our staff over the last year, and that's been a huge not a learning curve, but a huge challenge for us. It was always so small, and the three of us basically were able to oversee everything, where we're not able to manage every detail, and handing over a lot of that management to people that are now trusted to make sure the business is growing the way we want.
Yeah, the importance of delegating. What have you learned there? I mean, I've found that in a lot of my conversations with entrepreneurs, it can be difficult to turn over certain areas of the business that, when you're starting up, it's all hands on deck, and you're kind of wearing a bunch of different hats. What have you learned about delegating as you guys have grown?
I think the biggest issue we've come along with delegating is you have to build systems at the same time that add checks and balances and make sure you do at least have your thumb on the pulse at all times. It's not just simply deal with this now, although that generally has been how we've delegated in the past, but we're learning from some of those mistakes and trying to figure out systems that will make us function in a much more efficient way, as opposed to just kind of crossing our fingers and hoping.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't seem to work out so well if you just cross your fingers and hope.
It did for 4 years. So.
And at this kind of scale, you do certainly need to professionalize the business, obviously. But you guys are taking on even more expansion with the new Springdale project. So before you can even sort of wrap your head around putting a system or a process in place, you guys are already kind of pushing forward and charging out ahead again with a new project. Can you share a little bit about what you're doing with Springdale and what the plans are there?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is a year ago we had 15,000 square feet. We moved into this facility to brew. It's 67,000 square feet. We started really brewing in December, January. And now we're taking over another 63,000 square feet, so we'll be up to 130,000 square feet. And just walking from one side of the building to the other, you can kind of get lost, and I can't find anyone anymore. I don't know where everyone is.
They're hiding from them.
I knew it. Yeah, and you know, it's a little crazy for us to take over that space right now, but the timing was right for us. And we had like one challenge on space. Obviously, we have a lot of space, and if you look to the left, you can see all the barrels. And we had originally dedicated about 1,500, 2,000 square feet to the barrels when we opened. We thought that was more than we'd ever need. You can't really see from this location, but we have about 800 barrels right now. And it's just taken over the entire space. So you can't walk through our building without tripping over barrels. And we really wanted a way that we could be better about how we run the barrel program, both from a branding perspective and from a logistical perspective. Having all that sour beer right there, right next to our clean tanks, it isn't really ideal. So we wanted to separate the two operations.
Sure. Yeah. Operationally, it makes a ton of sense. But on the branding side, what was the impetus behind actually creating a whole new identity?
Sorry, we thought we were really brilliant when we went with Jack's Abbey Craft Lagers, and then that became a bit of a challenge.
Well, it was pretty brilliant, though, to I mean, really put your flag down and only do lagers. I mean, at least you stood for something.
That lasted for 9 months.
Yeah, we only made the switch to Jack's Abbey Craft Lagers about a year ago. So it had always been Jack's Abbey Brewing. Obviously, we had always exclusively brewed lagers.
Sure.
But we did that branding switch a year ago, and I think it was important for us. I mean, Jack's Abbey focuses on lagers, and it's different. It's in a craft beer world that is more and more saturated every day. Having a point of differentiation built into every beer Jack's Abbey makes is really important, and I think one of the reasons for our success. But Springdale is this whole other thing that really didn't jive exactly with the Jack's Abbey brand. So we wanted to brew some ales, maybe, God forbid, an IPA or a Saison, and more importantly, not let, we want to get really deep into the sour program and not let there be anything to hold that back, whether it be yeast or anything else.
Jack, did you feel restricted at all by the lager-centric focus?
I think we did a pretty good job being creative with lagers, but there is a limitation on one of four ingredients you can't change, or one of three, I should say, is always the same. So it does give us a lot more flexibility to be creative in another way. So we've already brought in, I believe, 6 different ale strains that we're piloting and experimenting, and it's again yet another learning curve. We've really worked hard over the past 5 years to brew lager, and ales don't exactly work in the same way. So it's been fun to completely reassess how we brew and what we're doing on that side of the project.
How do you guys plan to leverage the credibility that you guys have built, as a high-quality lager-centric brewery, with a totally new identity that's going to be, rolled out to the marketplace, even if it's not in package stores or being widely distributed? How do you take the identity that you've built with Jack's Abbey and kind of take some of that and put it into Springdale, even though it is a whole new brand?
Honestly, I think Springdale needs to be able to establish its own credibility and identity. I don't think Jack's Abbey really should be lending a ton of that to it. I think that's the reason we're going to start small. We're going to, have a tap room over there and no distribution out of the gates. Try and get people in, do things on a small scale, learn new processes, get better at what we do, and hopefully establish ourselves as establish Springdale as a credible project.
Sure. And functionally, you guys will actually be brewing here on site, and then kind of sending it over to the other side of the building, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, so we have one brew house, so all the wort will be made in the brew house over here, and we will pipe it over to that space, which allows us to brew the same quality of wort that we are brewing for our lagers, but transition that just to the Springdale beers.
Awesome. So early 2017, can we expect to be drinking on the other side of the building then?
I hope so. Yeah, that's the plan. So a few permitting hurdles, but nothing too serious, and we expect by hopefully the end of the year to be open.
Awesome. So, I think there are probably some people who might, argue that with 4,600 breweries plus 4,600 plus breweries, 1.5 opening per day. God, I don't know how many are here in Massachusetts, but I think 122 brewing permits is what I read as of October 4th, and certainly there's some duplicates in there, but there's a lot of breweries here. Some might say, why do we need another brand in the marketplace? Why do you guys feel like now is the time to introduce a whole new brand identity into the marketplace at a time when it is ultra competitive?
From our perspective, we try to, just for the decision to brew lagers, we knew that was going to be unique to the craft beer world. And there are people who are doing sour beer production, but there's very few who are doing it on the scale that we'd like to be able to do that on. And we think that'll be unique and a differentiating point compared to, if we were just, don't take this the wrong way, just to take Brew IPA or Saison over there. The focus really is the wood aging, and we think that that's a unique enough differentiator even in this market.
What sorts of challenges do you guys expect to face, kind of almost starting from scratch?
Actually just getting beer out the door. So we wanted to only do sour production, but it takes years. So we have barrels that have been here for 3 years now, but we know that we can't make enough sour beer for year 2017, so we're supplementing with some other fun projects, whether it's all 100% bread aged beers, non-sour wood aged beers, and hopefully for 2018, we'll really be able to ramp up the amount of sour beer that we can package, and with the learning curve of seeing what people like, be able to brand the beer better.
Sam, you're out there the most, hitting the pavement and talking to a lot of the key accounts. I know that's kind of your realm is, overseeing a lot of the sales, not necessarily the operations internally here at the brewery. But what are some of the most competitive headwinds that you've noticed, either here locally or just in some of the new markets that you guys have entered as well over the last year? What sort of trends are you seeing? How competitive is it out there? How tough is it out there?
It's tough. In our new markets, we're definitely seeing how much better we have to be at our job to sell beer farther away from home. We have to be more organized. We have to be more focused. We have to really have our goals really clear and go execute, where at home, there's so much momentum behind us. We have this space right here, which gets tons of people into it. The brand is doing really, really well in Massachusetts, and we put a ton of work in it, but it almost at times feels like we just have to kind of guide the brand forward, and it seems to almost move forward on its own accord. But out of state, it's a slog. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of preparation. We're getting better, and I think we've learned a lot from the rollouts we've gone through this year, most of which were very successful. But definitely, yeah, it's tough the farther away you get from home.
Yeah, so I was up in Maine this weekend and saw Jack Sabby on a big electronic sort of billboard outside of a retailer. Jack Sabby is finally here. So it seems like markets are probably receptive to the fact that you guys are joining, but like you said, actually getting into the market and executing and driving that pull is really the tough part. What are some things that you've learned having gone through that process over the last year that you might share with others who are looking to expand for themselves?
I think the biggest thing that we've learned is be really focused with what you want to accomplish out of the gate. With our latest 2 launches, we've pretty much launched exclusively with House Lager and Hamponius Union, and having that really super tight focus, having all those distributor reps be focused and learn about what our core is, as opposed to just spraying out. We can provide 10 brands for a launch if we wanted to. We could provide really too many brands and bog down a market, and retailers wouldn't know what was important to us. The sales reps at our distributor level wouldn't know what was important to us. We need to go and focus. We need to accomplish what we do, sell House, sell Hamponius. Next, we're bringing in our big seasonals, and then we can go, we'll bring stuff up for events. We don't hide the fact that we make a lot of other beers, but slowly but surely introduce all those other items so we can make sure we're gaining traction on every single one as we go.
And how much of that strategy has been sort of developed internally or with any sort of outside consulting, and how much of that is the distributor actually coming to you and asking for that type of approach?
It's mostly been from what we've seen has and hasn't worked. We've done market launches where we threw every brand that we have at the market, and we've sold a ton of beer in launch month, and then just seen it crater afterwards. And we've then spent 6 months, a year, rebuilding that market into a healthy place with old beer all over the place, with a lot of problems. And just from that standpoint right there, controlling old beer, which everybody battles. When we show up to a state with 3 SKUs for off-premise, it's so much easier to control. And hopefully we'll actually get the pull on those brands, and especially because it is focused, it makes it even easier to get that pull. But I think it's made it easier for us to execute these launches. Maybe if we had the resources of some really massive breweries, we could execute a launch with 10 different off-premise SKUs, but we need to be really focused. We're a relatively small sales team. We're relatively new at this. We need to go out hyper-focused. Let's accomplish these 2 goals, and we can go from there.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a smart approach. Even at the consumer level, if you think about it, these drinkers are being asked to remember a lot of beers, to look at a shelf of, hundreds of SKUs now and try to pick out a beer for the night is increasingly more difficult. You spend a lot of time just kind of staring at the refrigerator doors. At least anytime I'm in a retail store, I see a lot of that. So I think that's a good approach. Going forward, as you guys continue to look at new markets, well, I guess I should take a step back. Are you going to continue to look at new markets for expansion opportunities? Are you going to kind of drill down into the markets that you're in now? Sort of what's the strategy there?
We, at this point, have no plans for any new markets in 2017. So we've got a lot of growth to do in the markets we're in. We've got to get a lot better at what we do, and that's what we'll be focused on for a while now.
All right. So in thinking about just kind of how the entire craft space is developing, particularly here in Massachusetts, do you guys have any concerns about what's going on in the marketplace? I know we're going to get into this a little later, in talking about what's happening in Massachusetts, but it's sort of impossible to ignore the pay-to-play story that's been ongoing in Massachusetts.
Can we please, though?
We can't. But I think that's obviously sort of the big one here in Massachusetts. It's happened other places. It will continue to be an issue. There's still one, very large craft brand that has yet to launch in Massachusetts, which we hear, they're coming soon. So certainly any time a brewery of that size is looking to enter a market like Massachusetts, it could be quite disruptive. So what concerns you most about sort of the Massachusetts marketplace going forward?
You're the sales guy.
Great answer, Jack.
I think we're kind of in a unique position. The one thing that has really wasn't as big a factor, but it has become more important for us is our really traditional German-style beers. We're finding that originally just our Hoponius, our IPL or India Pale Lager, was what people wanted. But we really are now seeing that people are appreciating traditional lagers, and it really helps us even more than before to differentiate. Out of state, it's our bestseller. House Lager is just a German golden lager. In state, we think it'll be number one in the next year or two. So I mean, the challenges it's not just Massachusetts, it's local, which is why you can't sell your beer as well as you can out of state. And at least we have that. If you're going to do local, you're going to need to have something more drinkable. You can't have 12 IPAs, and so it helps us to market ourselves better in Massachusetts.
Sure. So, Sam, when New Belgium comes to town, how disruptive is that going to be for local businesses here? I mean, we saw it with Yingling. It was pretty disruptive. They took tap handles away from a lot of small businesses, created pay-to-play, very disruptive. So when a brewery comes in with lots of resources, it can be a challenge for some of the players that are local. That's always going to be a threat. So how are you guys planning to, brace yourselves for that and deal with it?
I'll be honest, we're not.
That's fair. Just.
I think it goes back to your point before. I don't think the local brands are going to hurt. I think it's going to be other out-of-state brands that are going to lose their lines because they're not in the market. They're not here to defend their lines. We go to every account we can every single week, and we're making sure that we have that share of mind, and that's what sells beer. It's what sells anything. It doesn't matter what it is, but if you're in front of someone, you're going to sell. Whatever new brand comes in, they're going to put a lot of people out there. But it's really going to be people who can't defend the lines that are going to lose them. So that's why Sam says he's not worried, but I'm worried.
Well, I mean, if I were, a brewery that's kind of going through as much transition as you guys are, it would be an area that I'd be paying attention to and watching because New Belgium is going to come into this market with a lot of resources, and they're going to get some mind share at least initially. Now, whether it's that crater effect like you guys experienced for yourselves in some markets, who knows? Maybe they'll drop off after a couple months or two. I think something like that can be disruptive to a marketplace.
Yeah, New Belgium's going to come in, and they're going to do a great job, and their distributors are going to do a great job getting displays and getting draft lines, and they're going to sell a lot of beer. I guess from our perspective, we're not worried about any specific launch like that. We're out there every day. We're working as hard as we can in this state. We've got 5 guys on the road every day, and I don't think there's any specific preparation that you can do. You have to be out there every day. Honestly, if you're not, I'm this may be crazy, but I'm less worried about New Belgium than I am about a million other breweries that I haven't necessarily heard of right now. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to identify if 25 draft lines disappear overnight when New Belgium shows up. It's a lot harder to identify the creep, this draft line or 2 every week that you might lose, and hopefully you're replacing them with 2 or 3 draft lines, but it's constantly happening. It's constant rotation. Honestly, I don't even know how I would realize if I lost 25 draft lines overnight. With the amount of rotation that's out there, it's some of the draft lines I'm going to lose anyway that day. So New Belgium sells them the next keg instead of whatever other brand would have sold them the next keg. But the reality was I probably wasn't going to sell them the next keg. This is the stuff we battle every single day. And I just don't see any one brand really changing the game that much, being that disruptive.
So sort of a lot to chew on there. You seem to be a bit more concerned about the long tail than any one large-scale brewery.
I would say I'm more concerned about the constant rotation than I am about anything else, and how to stand out in that.
So how do you combat that? How is Jack's Abbey working through that?
It's hard, man. I mean, if I had the answers, I'd be king of the world right now. It's tough battling through rotation right now. I think the one thing we have seen cut through it the best has been our German-style lagers, which we're pretty aggressively priced on, and we're putting out some really approachable, easy-drinking beer. And I think in a lot of places, that's become the less competitive draft lines, that Golden Lager draft line, than the IPA draft line, which, every brand in the market wants to go after that hoppy draft line.
Yeah, so you've definitely kind of cornered an area of the market, it seems, and yet kind of trying to play in that other, that other pond with IPAs and saisons and sours, where it might even be more competitive. With the new Springdale beers. So what's your plan there in terms of supporting it? And is that a response to all the rotation, or do you feel that you're going to be sort of adding something new to the category with that line and really trying to build that up?
For IPA and saison, I don't think we're going to be adding all that much. Obviously, we think we're going to make a beer of very high quality over there. But I think what's different is the sour production, the barrel beer. What was the first part of that question?
Well, I guess is the launch of Springdale being done in response to all of the rotation to at least be able to sell that keg that you might be missing out on?
No, I mean we don't have any plans for distribution of this brand. In fact, it's infuriating to our sales team that it's even out there under the Jack's Abbey name, because they're worried that people who buy our beer are going to be looking for Springdale, but it's not available. Really, the goal of Springdale is to create this great barrel program that we've already started, and at some point, when we can produce that in higher volumes, and that will be something we can introduce to the market. But we're planning on selling anything like IPA or saison straight from the retail operation there.
Sure. So one of the things that we really haven't seen be too big of a factor here in New England, at least yet, is any sort of acquisition or large-scale private equity investment. At least in the last 2 years, let's call it, when most of the activity has happened. But that's not to say that there aren't brands who are in this marketplace who have gone through one of those transactions. So I'm sort of curious if you guys have any thoughts on just the M&A activity in craft, how that might be altering the landscape, particularly in New England. As I said, there's not really a brewery that's gone through that transaction here, but there are brands competing in the marketplace still. What's changed for any of those brands that might have received a cash infusion or been acquired by a larger brewery? Has it gotten tougher for you guys?
Sorry, tougher because of the Budweiser backing people?
Just the level of resources that those brands are able to access now.
I don't think we're still in that. We're still small and growing, so we're not noticing that. I certainly think that there's potential that someone in New England or multiple people in New England may sell, but I'm actually with kind of the broader picture now, craft is in decline. Maybe I'm a little curious to see how that's going to play out and how that's going to affect any mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah, I mean, there are some trends to indicate that craft is slowing. I mean, I guess depending upon what definition you use, if you're using the Brewers Association definition, they'll probably tell you it's up 7 or 8% based on their definition. If you're factoring in all of the acquired breweries and some of the craftier brands like a Blue Moon or a Shock Top, yeah, we might be seeing some declines, especially in the last 4 to 8 weeks. And that's certainly a point of concern, I think, for anybody who makes beer, not just craft brewers, but anyone who makes beer. So knowing that, what gives you guys confidence to be expanding in the way that you are and to be kind of pushing forward at the pace that you guys are at a time when the sort of trends are kind of working back the other way now?
Who said we're confident?
The 100,000 plus square feet of additional space that you guys are moving into says you're confident.
Yeah, I mean, we crunched the numbers, and we determined that even if we could have a reasonable retail spot over there and not have to do any distribution, we could pay the rent over there. So we try to make every decision. Our father sits us down after every time we make a decision and shakes his head at us and like, are you sure that that's a smart decision? But he's, from the beginning, has forced us to look at our financials. I mean, he made us create financial reporting our first year in business, and I don't know how much money we lost. And it's like, why do you want us to do this? Because someday you're gonna have to take out a loan, and you need to have all your ducks in a row. So with that sort of guidance, we've really been able to make some fairly smart financial decisions. We're in a good spot. I mean, we built this whole space out, but we're able to pay our bills, and we're able to think about these fun projects, and hopefully they pan out and make money as well.
So you guys are maintaining profitability even as you guys undertake all these large CapEx projects, and even as you guys expand into new markets and put new resources towards the business?
We think so.
That's Eric's job.
Yeah, he's chasing back. We keep him in back. He has lots of numbers to punch, and
he'll get the
he's not allowed
later.
out.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think there's a lot of breweries that, couldn't say that for themselves. There are a lot of breweries operating at a loss and kind of doubling down. And, that can be a scary moment, especially now when the trends are the way they are. So I guess with that, I'd sort of leave it with, despite some of the potential headwinds that we've talked about, some of the slower trends, obviously the money pouring into the space and some of these craft breweries, getting investment from a private equity firm or being acquired, the amount of capacity expansion that we're actually seeing, not only from you guys, but from others. I guess for anyone sitting in the audience today that might be a brewery in planning or a startup or has just recently launched their brand and is thinking about growing, what are some thoughts that you might have, some words of advice, and how should those companies think about the way they're building their businesses so that one day they can operate in 100,000 square feet?
130.
130,000 square feet like Jack's Abbey.
I mean, tread carefully, but I think probably the most important thing for our success and for a lot of breweries like us is a room just like this. To be able to sell at retail has been, one of the most important pieces of our business, especially from a cash flow standpoint. Build smart, but part of building smart, I think, is figuring out a way to get people to pay full retail value right out of your front door.
I would also say know exactly what you want. Have a great plan, whether it's to stay small, and again, maybe have a retail option, or if you want to have that brand that's brewing a lot of beer, start out the correct way, be well funded, make a great product, have good it's all cliche stuff, marketing and branding, but
Right.
I think anyone who goes into well prepared will be fine still at this point. But if you're just looking to throw out some beer and have fun, it may not be a great time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's even more important now than ever to really know who you are and know who you want to be. It seems like there's sort of three distinct kind of, if you're segmenting the market, there's three distinct types of companies that are operating now. You have, really small, locally focused brands. You have sort of mid-size regional brands, and you have your national players. And that's the way the market appears to be shaking out. And I think the breweries that don't understand which group they want to participate in or which group they want to be a part of are probably going to struggle a little bit. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you overextend, especially, you could be vulnerable. I think we've pretty clearly made the decision that we're going to be regional, Northeast, and we want to do as great a job as possible in New England and, just a little bit beyond that. But, that's who we are, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do it really well. But if you potentially try and throw a bunch of resources into getting beyond yourself, potentially you'll struggle.
Awesome. Well, give it up for the Jack Sabby guys, Sam and Jack. And I guess Eric in the back working on the spreadsheets for you guys as well. So everybody can refill their glasses and get a beer, and then we'll reconvene in about 15 minutes for our final panel of the night. Thank you.